Philip, thank you for joining us today. We're here to talk a little bit about people getting paid in Bitcoin. And I have a little stat here I want to read off to you. This poll by Devere Group recently showed that more than a third of millennials and half of Gen Z would be happy to take 50% or more of their paycheck in Bitcoin or other crypto. I'm a little bit skeptical. I think that sounds a little bit like marketing for the industry. But to start, what do you make of that stat?
Well, I think it really shows that the pandemic really changed things for people. It made us reevaluate our priorities and what matters to us. And the workplace was no exception. Employers want more autonomy and flexibility and control in every aspect of their workplace and their workplace lives. And being paid in cryptocurrency is just a natural extension of that shift.
Yeah, definitely. We've seen just a surge in interest in crypto since the pandemic. So here and there, we hear these stories about, pro athletes getting paid in Bitcoin. We've seen the mayors of New York and Miami talk about receiving one, two, three paychecks in Bitcoin or other crypto. That is a lot different from everyday individuals. What are you seeing in terms of interest there, in terms of what you're hearing and clients you're talking to?
Sure, I think there's definitely an interest from employees to see whether or not they can get paid in cryptocurrency. They're definitely asking their employers whether this is an option and what the options may be. And I think from an employment perspective, the employers and businesses really need to evaluate that to determine what the options are. So at least they have a response to their potential workforce, whether it's applicants or current employees, about what those options are and what they're willing to do.
Is there a time where it's appropriate or ideal to, is there an ideal candidate to be receiving their paychecks in crypto? Receiving crypto as an investment is much different from crypto being used as money. A lot of people are getting their paychecks because they need to pay their bills, and just a lot of other people and vendors or what have you that don't necessarily receive cryptocurrency payments. What is the distinction there for you?
Sure. I think that's a good question. And I think it's really going to come down to the individual person and what their personal circumstances are. You mentioned athletes. And listen, a lot of those professional athletes, well, they're professional athletes, right? They're millionaires already. And so they have the ability to be paid in cryptocurrency and take a little bit more risk with their earnings. But for the individual person, I think it's going to determine and really be based on your personal circumstances. Not every grocery store is going to accept payment in a cryptocurrency, right? And that's certainly a factor to consider. But there's a lot of people who are willing to take that chance. And again, there's the option to only receive a portion of your salary in Bitcoin, right? Or cryptocurrency, I should say. You don't have to be paid your entire salary in cryptocurrency. You have the option, assuming you can even be paid in that. And one thing I will say is that as an employer, from the employment perspective, you're going to need to evaluate federal and state wage and hour laws to be able to determine and evaluate if that's even a viable option. So before we jump straight to what type of employees can receive it from the employment perspective, you're going to want to know and evaluate whether or not that's something that can be done under federal and state laws, just based on what you're trying to accomplish.
Right. Well, you beat me to it. That was the next thing I was going to
Yeah.
ask you, actually. Say that my skepticism is a little bit overblown and everybody wants to get paid in crypto. Aside from what you just mentioned, what are some of the other challenges to employers in doing so?
Sure. Well, again, first thing is you're going to have to evaluate the federal and state wage laws, because cryptocurrency doesn't really fit neatly into any of the currently existing statutes. You're also going to need to evaluate from an employer perspective whether you're going to pay directly in cryptocurrency or whether you're going to use a third-party processor where you pay in, cash or a fiat currency where it's automatically converted. The one of the issues for employers to consider is that if you're going to pay directly in cryptocurrency, that's considered a non-cash wage. What that means is that there's going to be different withholding and reporting requirements. So if you are an employer and you're not aware of this distinction, or you're unsure how to remain compliant, you could potentially erroneously report withholdings or potentially erroneously withhold. So those are some other issues to consider as well.
I know I'm not speaking to a developer here or anything, but is there an argument to be made for paying employees in crypto because of the technology that powers it? And I'm just thinking, the gig economy is only growing, and there are all types of workers who are juggling several different jobs and getting paid in several different ways, and they just want to be paid when they want to be paid and how they want to be paid, without waiting or without going through multiple parties to wait for that paycheck. But is there something about the directness of it, the person to person nature of crypto, that could be appealing to employers and employees alike?
Yeah, and I think that's a really good question. And there's a couple things. So the cryptocurrency, the blockchain technology itself, it one of the benefits is that it removes the middleman, right? It removes the payment process, it remove the bank, it remove, if you're dealing with international workforce, wire transfers and fees. And so, for example, if you have an international workforce, being able to pay directly in cryptocurrency that can be delivered almost instantaneously really makes a difference, as opposed to having to wait, days sometimes for, the money or your paycheck to settle. If you're dealing with independent contractors, they can be paid as soon as the job is done, right? Can automatically be transferred and settled. If you're dealing with employers who may send money back to other places, remittance, not having to deal with, again, those settlement delays and things of that nature, or conversion rates, if you're transferring it to a different type of currency, certainly helps, because, again, when you're dealing with that process, that's time delay, and there's also extra fees that are involved. And if you take those out by using cryptocurrency, that's more profit for the employer and more money in the employee's pocket.
It is almost April 18th. What are some of the tax implications that employees wanting to be paid in crypto should keep in mind?
Right. Well, I can't. I'm not an expert in the tax law, in tax laws, so I certainly I can't give guidance there. But what I can say is that employees, who are paid in cryptocurrency, again, they're going to be paid in what's called a non-cash wage. It's going to be treated as property by the IRS, and that has different reporting requirements. So that's something that certainly be aware of from an employer perspective. Again, since it's non-cash wages, you're going to have to consider the withholding and reporting requirements.
Okay, I want to take this one step further from paychecks. Uh, what have you heard from clients, from employees about crypto IRAs, and putting crypto in their 401ks? Just because, like you said earlier, a lot of the ways that people get paid in crypto, it's actually not a payment in crypto. They receive fiat, it's converted, and at the end of the day, the employee might as well just receive their paycheck in dollars and then go and buy some Bitcoin.
Sure.
What about their future investments? Have you heard any interest on that?
So yeah, there's definitely curiosity and interest into whether to be paid in, or I guess not to be paid, but to receive a portion of your salary or your paycheck, and have it go to a retirement account. There's different options that exist now. There's, again, you can have an IRA, but you can also have a potential 401k, which are different vehicles. But what I would say is that employers certainly will need to be aware of the recent guidance that came out by the Department of Labor, just regarding some of the steps they're taking to make sure and to really evaluate that space, essentially warning that if an employer or fiduciary does decide to go down this path, they should be prepared to be able to explain how they satisfied their standard of care as it relates to cryptocurrency, because the Department of Labor, they're viewing it as a more volatile asset than your typical stocks.
Sure. Okay, so to recap everything, give me your top two or three pros and top two or three cons on receiving some or all of your paycheck in crypto.
Sure. Well, I think what I think that three things that employers will need to consider is: one, if you're going to be paid or pay employees in cryptocurrency, you're going to need to evaluate your state and federal wage and hour laws. You're going to need to evaluate whether or not you're going to pay directly in cryptocurrency, and whether or not you're going to use the conversion rate. One other thing I think is that you're also going to need um, to evaluate your policies, right? You're going to need to update your policies if you're going to be paid, if you're going to pay employees in cryptocurrency.